Hi guys, welcome to the Python Essentials Part 3 lecture. In this lecture, we will go through the following very important concepts: loops, range, list comprehension, functions and lambda expressions, map and filters. Let's start with creating a new notebook, or we can continue with the previous one, what we already have. So let's continue with the previous one. We will start with while and for loops. While and for loops are the two main loops in Python. In loops, the statements perform an action over and over based on the set condition. The while loop continuously performs an action until some condition has been met. Python keeps evaluating the test expression before executing the statements, which are nested in the body of the loop, until the test returns a false value. Let's write a very simple while loop. We will start with initializing an integer I equal to 1 while tell the condition I is less than 5, print something, say the value of I. We can add placeholders here and use format, pass in the I, and let's do another thing here. Increment the value of I equal to I plus 1. So what we are trying to do, while I is less than 5, print the value of I, and after printing, add 1 to I. Let's run this thing. So we have value 1, 2, 3, 4 in the output. So the print statement will be executed until the condition is met, until I is less than 5. When I is less than 5, whenever the condition is false, we are not in the loop and it's not printing anything in the output. Let's try something here. So what if we don't want to add I equal to I plus 1? Let's run this statement again. We are somewhere in never-ending loop. Look at this one. It's printing. We can scroll down and it's kind of never-ending value. So now we are in the infinite while loop because I is always less than 5. I is always 1 here. If you get into the infinite while loop, you will notice a continuous output or asterisk on the left side of your cell. It will appear for a long time, and now you have to restart the kernel, or let's interrupt the kernel here. A very nice and elegant way of exiting the while loop is using else statement. Let's add another statement, else print exit. Now what will happen? Once the condition is false, the control will be shifted to else and it will print exit. Means we are exiting the loop. Let's run this code here. Yes, here it is. So after value of 4, the control is shifted to else and we get exit in the output. So this was all about while loop at the moment. Let's move on to the for loop. For loop allows us to iterate through a sequence. The for statement works on strings, list, tuple, and other built-in iterables, as well as user-defined objects. Let's create a list, my list here, with some numbers, say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In a very simple for loop, we can execute some block of code using the loop for every single item in my list. Let's try this thing. For item in my list, print item. So what this code is doing, the code is taking an item one by one from this list and printing that item in the output until there is something in the list. Item is a temporary variable here, and it can be whatever you want. It can be I, say I, and then it will be I here. It can be a, x, name, num, and anything. But a good practice is to use it carefully so that you can remember, and whenever you come back to check the code, you can understand what you have written. A good selection in this case is num, because we have numbers in our list. So another very useful trick is always use comments in your code. This is a great way to remember and also helpful while working in a team. Let's try another for loop. For num in my list, print hi. So what's going on now? You notice that the block of code print hi does not need to be related to the items in the sequence, in this case my list. We can print anything we want. Let's try another example. For num in my list, print, say num square. So now we are getting the square of the numbers in my list. 1, 2 square 4, 3 is 9, for 4 it's 16, and 5 is 25. This was all about the loops at the moment. We have explored while and for loops. After discussing loops, I want to introduce a very useful loop-related function, range, at this point. Rather than creating a sequence, especially in a for loop, we can use a range method, which is a generator of numerical values. With only one argument, range generates a list of integers from 0 up to but not including the argument's value. With two arguments, the first is taken as the lower bound, as a start point, and the last is taken as the upper bound. We can pass in 3 arguments to range as well. The third argument is a step, which is optional. If the third argument is provided, Python adds the step to each successive integers in the result. And if we don't pass third argument, the default value of step is +1. Let's see range. We can press in Shift tab and we can read the document string for range. Let's try range 5, passing only one argument in this case. We have 0 to 5. We can pass in range to a list, and we will have the list of these values, and then we will have list of these numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's try range with for loop. For I in, say, range 5, print I. Let's execute this code. So now I is actually iterating over. Let's try range with 2 arguments in a for loop. For I in range 3 and 5, print I. So now we have the start point and the end point. Start point 3 and 4. 5 is not included. The upper bound, it means less than 5. The upper bound is 5, so until it's less than 5. Let's try for loop with range and add a step in it. For I in range 1 to 10 with step 2, print I. So now we have 2 as a step. So 1 plus 2, 3, plus 2, 5, 7, and 9. So this was about range. Let's move on to list comprehensions. So do you remember the basic mathematics? Like we used to have something like this, like x square, whereas x belongs to n. This gives the square of all the natural numbers. Like another example in sets, x square, x in 0 to 9 gives the square of the numbers within the provided set, which is 0 and 9. This comprehension implements such well-known notations for sets. It is an elegant and concise way to define and create lists in Python. And of course, it saves typing as well. Its syntax is statement followed by the for clause within a square brackets. Let's we have a list x equal to 2, 3, 4, and 5. We want to create a new list that contains the squares of the elements in x. We can do this using a for loop, like out equal to initializing an empty list for num in x, appending out dot append num square, and let's print in the same block. So what we are doing, we are initializing an empty list, running a for loop on x, appending the square of the number to this empty list out, and then printing. And we have 4, 9, 16, 25, the squares of these numbers in x. This task can be elegantly implemented using a list comprehension in a one line of code. Simply take for statement and put it after what you want in the result in a square brackets. Let's write a list comprehension for this loop. So num square for num in x. So we want this in the output for what? For this x, for num in x. Let's run this thing. We have the same output as from the for loop. So this is a very concise and simple code for this complete block. Another example using string, like chars for chars in pass in string hi Jeff. So note the white space here. We have white space in our string and we get white space in the output. So we get a list of all the characters, we get list of all the alphabets in the output. Let's use list comprehension with range. Num square for num in range, say 2 to 10. So we can use range in list comprehension, and we are getting here the square of numbers 4, 9, 16 up to 81. So this was all about list comprehension. Looks like the lecture is getting longer. I'm going to split here, and we will talk about the functions, map, and filter in the part 2 of this lecture. See you in the next lecture. Good luck.